During the past few years, most of us, myself included, have had financial hardships due to the health crisis. It's also hurt a lot of people who rely on government subsidies like SNAP, EBT benefits, Social Security, SSI, and SSDI, just to name a few. Even with the multiple financial aid programs given to us, including stimulus checks, it felt like the mandates and the rules were built against us. We're now finding out that more information about big tech companies and how they played a big role to work with the government to limit what we could or could not know. How crazy is that, right? Not just that, but even Dr. Anthony Fauci was included in this, and you will not believe where his daughter works. Also, more signs are showing that economic downturn is pretty much an inevitability at this point. Signs are also pointing to the middle class and its destruction. Great job, Fed Chair Jerome Powell of the Federal Reserve. Just how long do we have to weather this storm? For your daily dose of the truth when it comes to the U.S. economy, the stock market, passive income, Social Security, and everything that's going on in Washington, D.C. that affects our lives, our wallets, and our bank accounts, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure your notification bell's turned on. I appreciate you guys always dropping a like and supporting the channel. I love getting this information out to the community, out to the YouTube family. Also, if you own a home, make sure your home is protected. Get your free home warranty quote. The link is in the description down below of this video. It only takes like 15-20 seconds. Guys, cash flow. It's a huge issue for a lot of Americans, and it's not really that surprising to say, right? I mean, it's been some time and, we've been struggling to keep afloat, some people. And it's weird when I see billionaires say that everything looks okay. Well, of course, everything looks okay from your 80th story penthouse or from the top deck of your $1 million yacht. But listen to this. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan, recently said, quote, "Businesses are still in good shape and consumer spending remains strong, with households hoarding $1.5 trillion in excess savings from pandemic relief programs," end quote. What? Really? I don't know about this one. Are you hoarding $1.5 trillion in leftover money from stimulus checks and whatnot? Not sure if Jamie Dimon needs a calculator, but this does not quite add up, as there's a lot of people who are drowning in debt right now. They're in credit card bills up to their eyeballs. Visa, American Express, car payments, increased mortgage payments due to increased interest rates from Fed Chair Jerome Powell of the Federal Reserve. But let's just say I do agree. Just how long will this money last that Americans who are grasping at straws, just to buy necessities? I know that a lot of us are just banking on credit cards at this point. And no, businesses aren't doing great. In fact, 41% of them are having trouble paying rent, and consumer spending is high because, like I said, there's more of us swiping on credit. He did, however, say that there's a chance for a recession, but if our wallets could talk, they'd probably tell us we've been experiencing signs of a recession for some time now. Now, here's another one. Were you guys aware that even the rich are now turning to cheaper places like Walmart now? Cheap for them, if you ask me. Wait, I thought that we still had money from previous aid. Why are the wealthy starting to shop at Walmart? So it doesn't quite match what JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon just said, because even the rich are feeling the economic pressure. So I don't know why he doesn't see it. It could be because he hasn't lived a life like ours in a very long time. The retailer is also telling us that they could hike prices very soon. Yeah, Walmart. But it's not just because of economic inflation or other economic factors, but this time around it's due to theft. So their CEO, Doug McMillon, said that, quote, "Theft is an issue. It's higher than what it has historically been. We've got safety measures, security measures that have been put in place by store location. I think local law enforcement being staffed and being a good partner is part of the equation. And that's normally how we approach it," end quote. Interesting. Are we ready to see law enforcement, police officers just walking around Walmart? Anyway, all of us are going to start to have to pay the price for these thefts, because you know how it is with a business, right? If they incur losses or increased expenses, they're going to raise their prices. This is how the game is played. So we're going to have to prepare for even more price hikes as more thefts continue to happen across the country. Now, it also raises the possibility that these different store closures, and while I don't frequent them as much, some areas may rely on local Walmart for goods. We never know. Imagine if your local Walmart would shut down tomorrow. Where would you shop? Would that inconvenience you and your family? Now, on the topic of things we didn't know, were you guys aware that Dr. Anthony Fauci has a daughter who works for Twitter? Neither did I, but this 7-hour deposition broke out a couple of things that we all need to be aware of. Now, it's 446 pages long, and no, I did not read nearly even half of it, so I don't expect you guys to read it page by page either. And it's also why I'm saying it here. So let me just kind of walk you guys through some of the most revealing aspects of the entire situation. information. All right, so Fauci was asked this question, and to be clear, this is in regard to the government's collusion with big tech companies, big tech social media companies in particular, during the health crisis. So he's asked, quote, "Do you know anyone who works for a social media platform?" End quote. To which he responds by asking the same question back. "Do I know someone who works for a social media platform?" End quote. Now at this point it's clarified, and he asked if he knew anyone before or at the time. And he answered, well, quote, "Well, I've had communications with Mark Zuckerberg in the past I've done, I believe, 3 outward FaceTime discussions encouraging people to get vaccinated," end quote. When asked if he knew anyone else, be it an acquaintance or someone else that works for any of the social media platforms we have, here's what he said, and I have to say that my mind was blown away. Quote, "Well, a person who used to work as a software engineer for Twitter was my daughter," end quote. He had a daughter who worked at Twitter. Now keep this in mind, guys. This is again questioning multiple individuals about the possibility of collusion between big tech social media companies and the government during the pandemic, and Dr. Anthony Fauci, the chief medical advisor for the United States of America, he had a daughter employed in one of them. Now, during this time, Dr. Anthony Fauci said this phrase or a variation of it 174 times. Quote, "I don't recall," end quote. Watch what Attorney General Eric Schmidt had to say about it.
Well, for a guy that proclaimed to be he was the science and this all-knowing being, it turns out his middle name was I don't recall. So we got a lot of that. We got a lot of that in the 7 hours, but we were able to extract, I think, some really important information. First, the lab leak. He was very well aware that this was a credible theory, much more credible than what he landed on, but they immediately went, I think because they knew they were exposed because his agency was funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan, went to discredit that and label anybody that came out with that just weeks later as a conspiracy theorist. Secondly, as far as the response, Fauci sends, along with the World Health Organization delegation, his chief lieutenant, Dr. Lane, to go there, and they witness these really extreme measures, these lockdowns that China was imposing, and they praised it. And Fauci was completely on board with that. And who knows what we might have ended up with even more extreme measures, but he was certainly on board with that and confirmed that in his deposition. And thirdly, as relates to masks, a friend actually emails him in February of 2020 asking him if she should wear a mask on a plane. And he says, basically, masks are ineffective. Later on March 31st, there's some emails with more studies to confirm that. Then on April 3rd, he does an about face and says, masks are completely necessary. Mandates follow. Lives are ruined, and COVID tyranny is born. What's clear from this depo, Laura, is that when Fauci speaks, big tech censors, and that's what this lawsuit's all about.
So let me get this straight. He was the head of the C-19 force millions of Americans were affected by. Some forced into bankruptcy. Small businesses closed down. Layoffs across multiple markets. Budgets and savings bank accounts destroyed. Families depleted their retirement accounts, 401ks, Roth IRAs. More and more people applying for SNAP and EBT benefits when they had financial freedom years ago. But this guy cannot recall what happened. How much are we paying this guy again? He makes more money than the president, for crying out loud. And I want to zero in on this next part of the deposition, and I'll share a screenshot of what was said. Quote, the top one is dated February 27th, 2020, right? And he writes to you, quote, Tony, I was glad to hear your statement about the C-19 vaccine, end quote, and so forth, right? Were you already on a first name basis with Mark Zuckerberg on February 27th? You know, a lot of people call me Tony who have never met me before, end quote. There's a lot to uncover with this thing. Like I said, it's more than 400 pages long, but note that Zuckerberg and Fauci are talking about vaccines on February 2020. Do these guys have a time machine that we don't know about? And Zuck called him Tony. Kind of weird when you haven't met the guy before, right? Like, I wouldn't want anybody just calling me Ronnie or something like that, especially if we don't even know each other. But again, it's a question of whether Fauci colluded with big tech organizations, big tech social media companies in order to prevent people speaking about and asking questions about the health crisis, masks, lockdowns, vaccines, mandates. Do you guys feel as if he was involved in doing something like this to the American people? And if he was, should he be held accountable for everything that's happened to us in recent years? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. below. Also, if you own a home, make sure to get your free home warranty quote. The link is in the description of this video down below. It takes about 15-20 seconds. And while you guys are down there, make sure to smash the thumbs up button. Consider subscribing to the channel. Turn on your notification bell icon. I appreciate you guys always supporting the channel, dropping a like for all the videos. I look forward to talking to you guys on the next one. Y'all be safe.